Hey, everybody, and welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're going to be talking about something that is at the absolute core of every relationship.
Every single one.
Yeah, and that is communication. And we actually have a really interesting source material for this one.
Very meta.
Yeah, it is a little meta.
Yeah.
It is actually a podcast script about communication in relationships.
Very interesting.
So we're not going to follow this verbatim, but we're going to be pulling from it.
We're going to extract the good stuff.
Yeah, the really interesting pieces, and use that as a springboard for this deep dive. So why is communication so important for a successful relationship?
Well, we talk about relationships, but we often focus on the surface level things. Those fun outings, those inside jokes. But just like a house needs a strong foundation.
Yes.
To stand the test of time, relationships need a bedrock of open and honest communication.
So true.
You can't have one without the other.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And our source material actually uses this analogy and says that communication is the lifeblood of any successful relationship.
I like that, yeah.
Romantic, familial, even friendships.
And it's true.
Any connection we make.
I think it's really important to emphasize that this is not just about romantic relationships.
Yeah.
This is about any time you are interacting with another human being.
Exactly.
And you are trying to build some sort of connection with them.
So if communication is the bedrock, then what are the building blocks that go into making communication truly effective?
Well, our source breaks it down into 3 core components,
Okay.
which I think is a really nice way to think about it, almost like essential ingredients.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, for this really rock-solid structure.
Okay.
So the first, and arguably the most important, is active listening.
Active listening.
And I want to emphasize the active part here.
Okay.
Are you ready for this? Research suggests that most of us only remember between 25 and 50% of what we hear.
Wow. 25%.
Isn't that wild?
That's less than half.
It's like going to a movie and only watching every other scene.
So we're missing huge chunks.
You're missing the entire plot.
We're definitely missing some crucial details, yeah.
Absolutely. And then we wonder why these misunderstandings pop up.
Right.
But that's what happens when we're not fully engaged in listening.
So it's not just hearing the words, it's about actually absorbing the information.
Being present in that moment.
Yes.
Truly absorbing not just the words being spoken, but the emotions behind them, the nuances in tone, even those pauses between words.
Yeah.
Imagine for a second someone nodding along to your every word, but you can tell their mind is somewhere else.
Oh, 100%.
They're mentally planning their dinner.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe they're thinking about what they're going to watch on Netflix later.
Yeah. Or looking over your shoulder at something else that's happening.
Exactly. That's not active listening.
It's so obvious when someone's doing that. Like, you
Wow.
can just tell.
And it makes you feel like what you're saying doesn't even matter.
You feel completely insignificant.
Yeah. You hit the nail on the head.
It's like you're talking to a wall.
You are.
Yeah.
Your words are just bouncing off a wall.
And I think we've all been on the receiving end of that at some point.
Oh, 100%.
Where you just know the other person is not really listening.
And it doesn't feel good.
It really does.
It makes you not want to open up and share.
Exactly.
And that's the opposite of what we want in communication.
Yeah, because then you just shut down.
Exactly.
You're like, all right, well, there's no point in me even talking.
So active listening is about making that other person feel seen, heard, and valued.
And that's such a simple thing, but it makes all the difference.
It really does.
Okay, so active listening, that's one crucial building block down.
And a big one.
What's next?
Yeah.
What else goes into creating these rock-solid relationships with amazing communication?
All right, so this one can be a little bit tricky for some people.
Okay.
It requires stepping outside that comfort zone a little bit.
Ooh, getting a little spicy.
A little spicy. And that is honesty and vulnerability.
Yes, vulnerability. And that can be really scary.
It can be really scary.
Because you're kind of opening yourself up to potential hurt.
Right. You're putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
And you're saying, hey, this is me, take it or leave it.
And our source material had this really interesting analogy.
Oh, yeah?
It's kind of like opening up this treasure chest.
Okay.
But you don't know what's going to be inside.
You don't know if it's going to be treasure.
Exactly. It could be like a scary monster.
Or spider.
Right.
Yeah.
But the reward of potentially having that treasure is worth the risk.
100%. And I think when we're talking about vulnerability in relationships, that's a really great analogy.
Yeah.
Because when you open up to someone and you're honest, even about the hard stuff, it shows a level of trust.
Absolutely.
And when you demonstrate that trust, it actually creates a safe space for the other person to reciprocate.
It's like you're saying, hey, I trust you enough to be this open and honest with you.
Exactly. And that, my friend, is how you build a deeper connection.
Because if you're not being vulnerable, if you're not being honest, then are you really even connecting?
Right. It's all surface level.
It's very surface. Yeah.
You're never going to get to that deeper level.
Okay. So we've got active listening, honesty, and vulnerability.
Yeah.
What is the third element here? What's the trifecta?
This one is all about paying attention to the things that we might not even realize we're doing.
Ooh.
And that is nonverbal communication.
Oh, that's huge.
It's not just about the words that we say.
Right.
It's about how we say them. Our tone of voice, our facial expressions, our body language, even our posture.
All of it.
It all plays a role.
I mean, think about like when someone's giving you the eyes.
Oh, yeah.
Like you know exactly what they're thinking, even if they don't say anything.
Or like a sarcastic eye roll.
Oh, the eye roll is a classic.
You can completely change the meaning of a sentence with a single eye roll.
100%.
And what's interesting is that research actually suggests that nonverbal cues,
Okay.
they can carry more weight than our words, especially when it comes to conveying emotions.
Okay, that's interesting because I think sometimes we think we're really good at hiding how we really feel. Oh, we think we're so slick.
But our bodies are like, nah, you're not fooling anyone.
Your body language is betraying you.
So how can we make sure that our nonverbals are matching up with our verbals?
I love that you said that because it all comes down to congruence.
Congruence.
Are your words aligning with your body language?
Okay.
So, for example, you're telling someone that you're so happy for them.
Yeah.
But your arms are crossed and you're not making eye contact.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to pick up on that.
You're not fooling anyone.
No, you're not.
You're sending very mixed messages.
Mixed messages galore.
So it's really about being intentional about both what we're saying and how we're saying it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's imagine now that we've got all three of these building blocks in place.
Okay.
We're actively listening, we're being honest and vulnerable, and our nonverbal communication is on point.
We're nailing it.
How does that actually play out in real life? Like, what kind of impact does that have on our relationships?
This is where things get really interesting for you.
Okay. Think about a time when you faced a challenge with your partner, a friend, a colleague.
Happens all the time.
Oh, yeah. We've all been there.
Yeah.
Now, imagine approaching that situation with this foundation of communication.
Okay.
You can talk openly and honestly, express your needs, and really listen to their perspective.
So it's not about avoiding conflict.
No, not at all.
It's about navigating it in a healthy way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're both on the same team, working together to find a solution.
I love that teamwork makes the dream work.
Right.
Okay, so that's like the ideal scenario.
Right.
But what happens when communication breaks down?
This is where things can go south pretty quickly.
Oh, boy.
So imagine the opposite scenario.
Okay.
Communication is strained.
Uh,
You're not truly listening to each other.
yeah.
Resentments start to simmer beneath the surface.
Ooh, those are dangerous.
They're like little ticking time bombs.
Yeah, and then they explode.
Exactly. And then those small, everyday issues, things that could have been resolved with a simple conversation, they start to feel like these insurmountable obstacles.
Right, because you've let them build up.
Exactly. And it creates this distance between you.
So instead of feeling closer, you're actually drifting further apart.
You're on opposite sides of the Grand Canyon.
Oh, no, and that's the opposite of what we want.
Right. We want to be building bridges, not walls.
Exactly, and this is why mastering these communication skills is so crucial.
It's not just about avoiding conflict, right? It's about having the tools to navigate challenges together,
Yeah.
to actually strengthen that bond and deepen that connection with the other person.
And you know what I really appreciate about the source material we're looking at for this deep dive?
What's that?
It doesn't just give us this big picture overview of like, oh, communication is important.
Right.
It actually gives us tools.
Gives us the how-tos.
It gives us the how-to.
Yes.
Because we can hear that and we be like, yeah, communication is important.
We all know that.
We all know that. But how do we actually do it better? And it sounds like one of the most fundamental things is that active listening.
Yeah. Active listening is huge.
But it can be so hard
It can.
because our brains are so busy.
Well, and we're so used to multitasking now.
Yeah. I know, I do it all the time.
Oh, yeah?
I'm listening to someone and I'm also like thinking about what I need to do later
Oh,
today.
100%. And then you miss half of what they said.
Or I'm already thinking about what I'm going to say back to them.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm not really even absorbing what they're saying.
And that's not active listening. That's just waiting for your turn to talk.
Exactly. So how do we break that habit?
It takes practice.
Okay.
You know what I challenge you to do? next time someone is talking to you,
Okay.
I really want you to focus on what they're saying,
Yeah.
how they're feeling, before you even think about your response.
Okay.
Just be present in that moment.
It's like quieting the mental chatter
Exactly.
so that you can really tune in to what the other person is saying.
And you know what? You might be surprised at what you learn.
I bet. Okay, so that's active listening. What other communication tips does our source material have for us?
So we talked about being honest and vulnerable,
Yes.
and the source suggests using I statements as a way to express ourselves more authentically.
Okay, so instead of saying, like, you always do this.
Which, let's be real, nobody likes to be told that.
Right, it makes you immediately defensive.
Exactly. Instead of saying, you never listen to me,
Oh, yeah, that's a classic.
you could say, I feel unheard when I don't feel like I'm being listened to.
Oh, okay.
See the difference?
Okay. It's subtle, but it's huge
It is.
because you're taking ownership of your own feeling.
Exactly. And you're not blaming the other person.
Okay, I like it. What else?
So you know how life can get really busy?
Oh, tell me about it.
And it's easy to feel like you're just ships passing in the night, even with the people you're closest to.
100%.
That's where scheduled check-ins can be a game changer.
Oh, interesting. So you're actually putting it on the calendar.
Put it on the calendar.
Relationship meeting.
Exactly. Think of it as a dedicated time to connect.
Because we schedule everything else.
We do. We schedule doctor's appointments, work meetings. Why not schedule time for our relationships?
It's giving the relationship the same importance as everything else in our life.
100%.
Yeah.
Because let's be real, those important conversations often don't happen organically.
You don't, especially when life gets busy and you're just rushing from one thing to the
Well,
next.
exactly. You're just trying to survive.
Okay, scheduled check-ins. Love it.
All right.
Right. What else? What's the last tip?
Okay, this is the one that might feel a little bit uncomfortable,
Oh, boy.
but it's so important, and that is being open to feedback.
Ugh. Yeah, that is tough.
It's tough because none of us like to be criticized,
Yeah, even if it's constructive criticism,
even if it comes from a good place.
it's still hard to hear.
Our instinct is to get defensive.
Totally.
But here's the thing. Feedback is a gift.
Ooh, okay.
It's an opportunity to learn and grow, both as individuals and in our relationships.
So how do we get better at receiving that gift? Because, I'll be honest, I'm not always great at it.
Well, instead of immediately jumping to defend yourself when someone gives you feedback,
Okay.
try saying something like, "Thank you for sharing that with me. Can you tell me more about what you mean?"
So you're approaching it with curiosity
Exactly.
instead of defensiveness.
You're opening up the lines of communication.
Okay, I like that.
Because oftentimes that feedback, even if it's not delivered perfectly, comes from a place of caring.
That's a great point.
They want to see you succeed. They want the relationship to thrive.
Wow, this has been such an eye-opening deep dive.
It has.
We've covered so much ground, from the foundational importance of communication to practical tips we can all start using today.
Absolutely.
It really highlights how these small shifts in how we communicate can truly transform our relationships.
I couldn't agree more.
And as we wrap up, I'm curious, what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from this conversation?
You know, I think the biggest takeaway is that building strong and meaningful relationships requires effort.
It does.
It takes intentionality.
It's a verb.
It is. It's about showing up consistently, being present, and nurturing those connections through open and honest communication.
Couldn't have said it better myself. This has been fantastic. Thank you so much for this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
And thank you all for listening. We'll catch you next time.